Well, I am very excited to be here with Michael and Johnny from When in Rome 2. Guys, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we are here at the Canyon Club in Agora Hills. And what do you guys think of this venue? Kind of nice, huh?
Very cool. Very cool. First time here, and it's got that kind of retro quiche 50s thing going at the bar and everything. I can imagine Humphrey Bogart walking in there, lighting up and ordering a beer.
I can see it. All right, what about you, Johnny?
I love it. I love the fine selection of Persian rugs.
Yes, the finest in the entire tri-state area. I expect a salesman to come out here and try to pawn some of these off on us or something.
It's a shoegazer's Shangri-La.
I like that. A shoegazer's Shangri-La. That's beautiful.
He's a lyricist, you know. That's what you get with lyricists.
Well, speaking of lyricism, Johnny, I had the pleasure of listening to some of your new material, When in Rome 2, and really earlier off stage, before the interview, we were talking about the sort of vocal stylings of other artists, and the vocals on this album, this release, really struck me. I mean, there's a depth to it. There's a real evocativeness to it, and I just wanted to ask you, in coming into these studio recordings, did you do a lot to prepare? I mean, did you have to get into a certain mindset to sort of, was there an emotion that you were trying to channel, I guess?
Yes, Michael, my partnership with Michael has brought out the best singing I've ever done.
Wow.
Yeah, there's something about the way that he writes music that compels me to sing better and to write better lyrics. That's really what I attribute it to.
Okay.
And then once we got into the nuts and bolts of crafting the songs, our motivation was really all about touching people's lives. And I met with a fan. We did a show at Dallas House of Blues, I think it was, and there was a fan who said that she had listened to the first When in Rome record during a very difficult time in her life, and it had meant a lot to her to see us play and to perform some of the songs off of the record, even though I wasn't the guy singing on the record, obviously. But I was just so touched by how profoundly affected she was, and I went back to Michael and said, let's make this about helping people and touching people's lives, and so that remained our primary focus. So whenever we were working over sections of songs and lyrics and stuff like that, it was always about trying to touch people's lives with a positive, hopeful, optimistic kind of vibe. So
and charting new territory. And I'd imagine when you have people come up and talk about the legacy of some of the prior work, it's no small feat to put out new material, right? I mean, kind of to be in the shadow of some of that, and to know, when we put out some new material, we want it to be spot on. We want to, there may be some, instead of doing 2 takes, we're going to do 20 takes of this to get it right. I mean, did you feel that sort of perfectionism? And maybe I'll.
You're very.
Am I psychic? Okay.
Yeah, John is really good at harmonies, and that was one of the things that really struck me when I first, met up with him. And on the album, it was incredible, the attention to detail on the harmonic structure, and there's a lot of work gone into it, a lot of work. And the album probably took 2 or 3 years, on and off, because there's a level of perfectionism there from this man that goes beyond, a lot of people's wildest dreams. So so we're going to start working on other ones soon, but don't expect it to just show up. It's going to take a while, but we just enjoy writing together. It's a pleasure.
That's a beautiful thing. I mean, in this day of Pro Tools and people being able to go into a small little studio and kick out an album in a couple days, I mean, I think it's an increasingly rarer thing to have the high standards and perfectionism that sometimes, for better or worse, can result in material taking many years to come to fruition.
Well, we had a lot of conversations in the beginning about the kind of band that we wanted to be, and from a production standpoint, we're both huge fans of Peter Gabriel and Tears for Fears, and I mean, obviously, the albums that came from those folks is, I mean, that was really, you were mentioning that there was this legacy and a shadow, and sure, there is a big part of that, I mean, it's a known band, everybody knows The Promise, you sing the first line of the song and they join in with you. but we really wanted to do something. You know, we weren't thinking in terms of we have to, you know, be better than the first record. It wasn't about competition. You know, from an artistic standpoint, it was really about touching people's lives. And from a production standpoint, you know, we wanted to do something really exceptional and really special.
And I had the chance to listen to the full album, and I was extremely impressed. Again, the vocals really, there's the presence to the vocals. It was just very impressive. And also, of course, the iconic keyboard stylings that you bring with it, the tickling of the ivories, or whatever we want to say, also very, very standout in terms of so I could sense both of your sort of creative influences, obviously very heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, what we wanted to do in some respects was, obviously back then it was a different era, and it was very much like an electronic era. And we're moving on, and nowadays there's definitely a different style of music out there, and we just wanted to incorporate some of the things that were back then were a signature for When in Rome, which was piano and strings. And melodic vocals, but we also wanted to integrate into a more of an organic sound, because you really have to change. I mean, you know, 20 years on, you have to evolve, and I think that's what we achieved. That's what we wanted to do, and we did achieve it, and it worked out really well in the end. We actually had Warren Hart co-mix it with us. He did the Fray. Worked with Aerosmith. He's worked with a lot, and we got a guy called Victor Indrizio. He's a big-time LA session drummer. He was actually in the Greek. Is it Take Me to the Greek or Get Me to the Greek? You know the movie? Yeah. He's the mad drummer in that.
He's, you know, yeah. That's exactly where I was going. Warren Hart is a master producer. He's a genius, and we went through a battery of producers, and they were all really great. They were already great people, really talented. You know, people with. Just an amazing catalog. But there was something about Warren where, you know, I sat down with him, and it was like it's like he had been intimately involved in the creative process with us. I mean, he had listened to the record, and he understood what we needed and what we wanted. And he said all the right things. And so we were very, very fortunate to have him at the helm, you know, as far as mixing and raising, you know, our work to that level of platinum fidelity, and then with Victor, I mean, he's a genius. So adding those two guys into the mix to finalize the production of the record, to get it to the standard that we were attaining to, you know, it can't be overstated how important Warren and Victor were to the process, and we were just so lucky, you know. So lucky.
The production really stands out for me. I mean, sometimes you hear albums and they sound, for lack of a better term, overproduced. And I think I've heard it said in talking to other musicians about production that some of the best producers are those that know when to keep their fingerprint on something, and when to sort of step back and let the artist vision carry out. And it sounds like he did that.
Warren, he was so concerned with making sure that we were happy. He wasn't trying to, you know, fit our sound into his production style. He was trying to implement his production skills in a way that would facilitate our sound, and it was amazing. I love Warren. He's one of my favorite human beings, and I look forward to many more things with him. Yeah.
Well, maybe someday we'll have the pleasure of talking to you, Warren. So look out. We'll be coming for you.
No, he's a Chelsea fan.
Okay.
Some people understand.
We're going to get through an interview without mention of soccer.
Yeah, I've seen some of your other interviews, and it does come up as a topic, doesn't it?
Well, you know, I'm from just outside Manchester, and I don't know what it is about English people. Whenever we get together, there's a common denominator, and it's soccer. So everybody, if you've got a soccer team, you can talk to people for hours. It kind of breaks the ice. So Warren and I had many a conversation about Chelsea and my team. I'll keep that quiet, my team, for now.
I think I know what it is. But, well, speaking of Manchester, actually perfect segue, because we had a chance to talk about some of the new trailblazing going on with the band. And I, of course, wanted to take a few minutes to talk about kind of the early history of your work with the original version of When in Rome. So going back to Manchester, I'm so fascinated by what is sometimes called kind of the Manchester scene of the early '80s towards the end of the '80s. So many other artists we've talked to have talked about what was going on in Manchester. You know, the Smiths, Mark Burgess from the Chameleons. We went in great length about the Manchester scene. So, what? Yeah, weren't they? Yeah, Mark, amazing guy. What was it like back then? I mean, the man. I know it's kind of cliche to say the such and such scene, but what was going on there, like in the mid '80s when you guys were coming up in Manchester?
You know, it was kind of new because you got New Order kind of changed a lot of things. There was the Human League, New Order, ABC. We kind of got caught up in it, but it was almost like it passed you by. You know, you look back now and go, wow. At the time, you just kind of got on with your own thing. And the thing about electronic music was it wasn't live, it was all studio based. So we'd bury our heads in the studio for days and weeks on end. And, you know, we'd run into bands every now and then, but it just kind of drifted by for me, to be honest.
And do you think that was because of the type of music, like you said, bands that were, you know, live rock bands out there performing, hauling gear, having an opportunity to connect more with other colleagues and fans, whereas being a studio band, maybe not out there quite as much, or?
Yeah, and you got to understand that at that time there was this whole potpourri of sounds going on. There was still the hair metal. Remember that? Yes, and all that was going on.
That was really big in these parts here in Southern California.
That trailed off, and then by the end of the 80s, it started going to soul and a different culture. Yeah. And we kind of were on the trail end of the Depeche Mode era and the beginning of the soul to soul. So we kind of segued into both. And so when we came in with our album, it was kind of riding on the end of the wave of the 80s stuff. Yeah. And then the Soul to Soul started becoming a little bit more groove based, a little bit more club orientated. Yeah. Drugs started coming in. Then we got Happy Mondays and all that scene.
24-hour party people, although that was more earlier Factory Records. But yeah, and I know, you know, the whole Manchester scene, but that was something I actually wanted to talk to you about, because in Manchester, kind of that trajectory of changing into, again, the Mondays, Stone Roses, Soup Dragons, different James. Yeah. So
James is a genius.
yeah. Yeah, really. So for you guys, was it a help or hindrance to be sort of bookended by two sort of big expanding scenes at that time there in like '87, '88 kind of?
Personally, for me, it was a bit weird because The Promise was written. It was originally a ballad, and then it became a dance hit, which was really weird because it got remixed. Yeah. And then it became a big hit. But the rest of the album was kind of a mix of electronic and organic. And so there was kind of a musical change going on within us. Yeah. And as we morphed into the 90s, the very early 90s, it changed again. So we were kind of stuck in this groove right in the middle. Yeah. So it was a bit weird. Yeah. So
I'd read and seen other interviews where you and the other band members from back then talked about the coming into the second album. And when that second album, I mean, and I don't know how far it got, but that was sort of the end of the first run of When in Rome. A lot of creative differences of what direction to go in.
Yeah. Well, I think what happened was that we actually demoed the whole second album. I mean, we had a bunch of songs, but they were very much the first album songs. Okay. And the music scene then was kind of spiraling into the Soul to Soul, Cameo. Yeah. And the other members of the band decided that was a direction they wanted to go in. Okay. But we had a massive fan base here from the first record, and we had the songs written. Yeah. So I kind of dug my heels in and says, I've written these songs, and this is what and they didn't want to do that. So we never got to the second album, unfortunately.
It's a story as old as time. I mean, when you're talking to bands, I mean, creative differences, there's something wonderful when there's a nexus and everybody's on the same wavelength, but it's so easy for that wavelength to get a little bit out of alignment, and then you have different visions.
Yeah, on my part, I wrote the music, and so that was the When in Rome sound as far as the music goes. Yeah. And for me, I was kind of trying to figure out where's the next move going here, how do we evolve? But when you've written 10 songs for the album and they were good songs, you kind of say, okay, we've got to go with this for now. But the other guys didn't want to do that, and so musical differences. Happens all the time.
It does. Very common, sadly, or for better. I think it's a negative, but understandable that.
It's personalities as well. I mean, you spend a lot of time together, you're on the road all the time, and then eventually the smallest things become big things. And really what you should have done, and probably what we should have done, is just gone on vacation for a month and never seen each other, and then came back and reassessed. But bands don't do that. I mean, you're young, you're influenced by what's going on, and you think, well, maybe I'm right and they're wrong. And then later you go, well, maybe we were all wrong, or we were all right,
I had the pleasure, we mentioned Mark Burgess from the Chameleons earlier, and in interviewing Mark, he talked about the first run of the Chameleons. Pretty, great out the gates energy, but sort of dissolved, sadly, with the untimely passing of their tour manager, who was kind of a father figure to them. But I think in talking to Mark, we were talking about kind of how if you could go back and almost have like some group therapy, like family therapy or some opportunity to really hash, Metallica did that in that documentary, to really get through some of those emotional barriers. And it's hard though. It's hard when you're a 17, 18, 19, in your 20s, you're young lads out there, egos, creative visions. I mean, it's not something that's easy to sit down and talk about your feelings and stuff.
And what you're dealing with is different people with creative ideas, and sometimes your creative idea doesn't work with the other. It doesn't mean it's wrong or right. As you get older, you kind of appreciate that more, and you agree to differ and move on. And John and I went through some major disagreements about the second album, but in the end, we just moved forward and hammered it out. And my experience working with previous band members taught me to go, well, that's what you got to do. You got to work it out, because it's all about the song. It's not about the individual. It's for the greater good is the song.
You have to kind of let your ego get out of the way and look at the greater thing. And so for you, Johnny, you were able to sort of use some, I don't want to say conflict resolution skills, but to be able to hash out some things with Michael in order to get to a place where you felt comfortable with the music that was put out.
I would say that I've benefited from being in a musical collaboration with a guy who's more mature than I am. And, when we would get into gray areas and try and, hash out, differences in musical direction, Michael he's a gentleman, and he's kind, and he's patient. He's very patient. And so a lot of our musical differences really boiled down to, we'd be going in these separate directions, and he'd be navigating those waters with much more dignity than me. And
which is something you learn maybe right after a couple decades in the biz and stuff.
It forced me to grow up and to learn how to work as a professional with a professional. Okay. So I really attribute a lot of our ability to stay together to Michael's maturity and patience.
The irony is on the second album, the song "Let It Go." That was probably the one song that we probably differed. Yeah, and it's called "Let It Go."
Okay.
There's the irony.
It's worthy of an Alanis Morissette song, kind of. Yeah, but
and I think the emotion in there is right. You've got to move on. You've got to let it go, and that's what we did. So it did work out well. But that's what it's all about. It's a collaboration. It's not whose idea is the best. It's what works best for the song.
What works ultimately.
And that's ultimately that's how I look at it.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And getting back.
Are you guys gonna fight? No. Just like, no.
And getting
such polite gentlemen. It's great.
Getting back to Warren's role.
Yeah.
He somehow managed to the sessions that we sent him for mix production. The track count on them was pretty extensive.
Okay. So you had to pare down the album cuts.
No. He didn't. No, we had track count. By that I mean that for one song, I think the highest track count was 133 elements.
Oh, gotcha.
And Warren somehow managed to get at the end of the process. Michael was asking Warren to bring out more of my parts, and I was asking Warren to bring out more of Michael's parts. Okay. So it kind of interestingly enough, it ended up being that at the end of the whole process, we were vying for the other person to have a more dominant role in the sound of the band. It was kind of a cool. But that was I attribute that to Warren. He was really good at bringing the songs out in a way that was just amazing.
Well,
We
that's
got lucky with him.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yep.
Earlier, Johnny, we were talking about your idols, Peter Gabriel and folks like that. I want to ask about other influences. I mean, when you were coming up as a young lad, what got you inspired to become a musician? What albums were you purchasing when you were a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, it was all about Pink Floyd and Ultravox.
Okay.
The Wall and Rage in Eden, those two albums, pretty much got me started into the whole rock and roll pop music arena. But the seminal figure in my musicality is Jimmy Necco from a band called Ours, and like in my opinion, he is the greatest pop rock vocalist of all time. He's an absolute vocal genius and a lyrical genius, and he writes my favorite songs. I love Jimmy Necco.
Yeah. Have you had the pleasure of meeting him in the past?
Well, we did a show with him, and we got to open for him, and I met him through that, and we became friends. And it's not uncommon for him to call me up on stage to sing with him now when he comes to town, but it's terrifying.
I bet that's terrifying and surreal. We've interviewed other people where they've talked about getting to a place in their music career where they've had the pleasure of performing with one of their idols, and how surreal that is. And I bet that is quite so for you.
Yeah, every time he does that to me, I feel like I'm going to pass out on stage. It's terrifying. Well, if you get a chance to look him up, you'll understand why. He's an incredible singer, and he's a great human being. He's so sweet. It's kind of like a dark, I don't know. Yeah, it's real, but beautiful. His voice is gorgeous. He was friends with Jeff, actually. They were very close friends.
All right. Well, Michael, the obligatory question for you, my friend, in terms of you when you were coming up and maybe in the 70s or maybe in the early 80s, what were some influences on you that got you down that path that ultimately became When in Rome?
You've got me stumped there. I just listened to. I know. I listened to so
another way
much.
I usually ask this question to kind of, because that is such a heady question. What were your influences? More, what were the first two albums you remember purchasing as a kid? And sometimes that's an extremely embarrassing thing, but I think it kind of gets us down that conversation.
Yeah, I think Snoopy and the Red Baron was the first single I got.
Yeah.
Which is very embarrassing. It does. Actually, one of the first single I started listening to was Marvin Gaye. Heard it through the grapevine, so that was a good start. But I just love. I love
mentioned Vince Guaraldi too. I could sense that piano work kind of at the beginning of The Promise. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
in there. That was an influence. But a really big influence on me was the Human League album Dare.
Yeah.
I just loved that album. I just loved the sonic quality of it. So that was an influence as far as how I would write songs in those days. But I just listened to everybody. I mean, I actually really love, a lot of Motown stuff because it's melodic and the harmonies and the playing's brilliant. But it just goes across the board, really.
One question that's kind of becoming our signature question when we interview folks from across the pond. If somebody was raised here in the U.S., especially California, Southern California, we usually ask about Rodney on the Rock. But when we're talking about people over in England, I love hearing people talk about John Peel. Almost everybody I've talked to has referenced whether they liked all the music he played or not. For you, I mean, was Peel influence? Yeah.
He was he used to be on at night when it was my bedtime, and I would sneak him on and listen to him in the dark.
So many artists that we've talked to have actually said that. It was like this thing, yeah.
And he would play everything. I mean, it was just some of it was rubbish. But he championed bands, and a lot of the time I think he broke a lot of bands. I think he broke the Undertones. He was mad about the Undertones.
Undertones, Teenage Kicks, one of his favorite singles of all time, actually.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, I think he influenced me as much as anybody about what I listened to. And there's a couple of bands that I can't remember the name, but they were electronic bands, and he championed them, and they didn't break for some reason, but they were really good. Yeah. There was a couple, and there's another really weird band he used to play. So he did all kinds of stuff, but he was
So many people have talked about, here in the States, you had Rodney on the Rock. You also had college radio. If you didn't live in California, local college radio, non-commercial. We were actually talking earlier with Pascal from TransX, who's performing tonight, and he was talking about how up in Canada, they also had kind of a national Canadian broadcasting company. His dad worked there and was a DJ, and I was asking him about this connection. So up there, they had a pretty diverse, non-commercial, subsidized, socialized form of broadcasting, but it exposed a lot of people to things that they otherwise would not have heard.
Right. If you listen to commercial radio, you're only ever going to be influenced by that. You've really got to listen to everything and then, let it sink in and adapt to it, really. So, yeah, John Peel, they used to have a pirate radio. I don't know if anybody else talked, but they used to have pirate radio over. Literally, there's a movie about it where they're actually on the ocean.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they used to broadcast from the ocean. And all the DJs that worked there ended up at Radio 1.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they avoid, was it because they were in international waters, they avoided the criminal fines and stuff
It
like
was
that?
to avoid the laws, the UK laws, and I think they ended up getting arrested. And they came in and took them away. You have to watch the movie; it's hilarious.
I will check it out. And one last question for you guys. Really appreciate your time. You have a busy night here and going to be going on stage here in a little bit, but kind of have to do this when we're talking about When in Rome. Sure. Get back to talking about the influence of The Promise. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of music videos, especially for me in the 80s, MTV. Music videos, for better or worse, was one medium in which I was exposed to different artists, and so The Promise, the music video for The Promise, I always liked it so much, and I wanted to ask you some questions about the filming of that music video. Whether you, Clive, the guys had an opportunity to, how much creative license you had with that, or was it just sort of a director coming in and telling you to lip sync and take your places?
I think what happens is in those days the record company would approach directors and ask them to storyboard it. Yeah. So they'd give them the song, and then they would storyboard it and come up with a concept. And I believe that's what happened. And I remember it was like an old style English manor. And we shot it over 2 days.
I was going to ask you about how long it took. Yeah.
2 days. The model, I always get asked this: was she the girl that was on the front of the single?
I was going to ask you that as well.
No, she. I think she was Australian. She was blonde. She was wearing a wig.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. That was the girl on the single. But no, it wasn't the same girl. But yeah, I believe it was scripted, and we went with it. But we did try and go with this concept of the camera was always moving, which was quite kind of different for the time. Yeah. But some people said it made you feel seasick.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that.
And of course, I was grabbing to pull my album out here. Here you go. This was quite hard for me to find on vinyl, actually. That is a wig right there. Okay.
I didn't know that. I actually met her at another photo shoot a few months after. Yeah. And somehow we got talking, and she said, "Yeah, that was me."
Okay.
So.
Yeah,
trivia.
Beautiful women, admittedly. We have to acknowledge very model-esque, very model-esque. Well, one of the things, as you mentioned, the almost rotoscopic nature as things are going around and around. I always like drawing parallels, and I don't know whether they're just me projecting or if maybe there were similar directors or similar aesthetics of the time. But it reminded me a lot of a sped-up version of Crowded House's Don't Dream It's Over, which was kind of a traveling through time, but as you rotated over, you went through different rooms. Right. And I always just thought, and around the same time, 86, 87.
I don't believe it was intentional. It was just coincidental. It's great.
Awesome. Can't you see it, though, right?
I can see that. Anything that would connect When in Rome to Crowded House is awesome. Okay. Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't off.
Amazing.
He is amazing. One of my favorites. I'm glad I not off on that observation. So. No. Great minds think alike, right?
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, I can barely even say it. Okay.
All right. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I love Crowded House. Great songs, great melodies, great piano work as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
Beautiful stuff. All right, guys. Well, last opportunity to say for the fans out there of what they can expect from When in Rome 2 here in the near future, what to be looking out for. Check out your website, check out the Facebook page.
Yeah, well, the new album's out on iTunes, so you can go on there. You can get it on Amazon. We're going to do some promotion next year. We've not really started promoting it too heavily yet, but next year, well, I keep saying next year, it's next year now, isn't
It's
it?
2016, yes.
2016, and we're going to start working on a new album. We've got plenty of shows coming up.
So it's part of the band's New Year's resolution. Things will happen now, right?
Well, if we start on the new album this year, it might get done next year. Okay. But we've got some great new songs, by the way. We're happy to start working on them. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good, and wish everybody a happy 2016.
All right. Final words from you, Johnny. Same thing, I assume, echoing his sentiments.
Yeah, we look forward to putting out a bunch more great music for you, and we look forward to seeing you when we are able to perform live. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, guys, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.